Mame fa na se ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV de osia dem yopo.
You are most welcome to PENDREAM TV, the only channel that brings you the best and latest updates in politics. If you are new here, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, like and also share to other members to watch as well. You can also leave a comment after watching or send us a voice note on our WhatsApp number, which is 0277-128-777. Thank you. Wisdom Kofi Dogbe, a financial analyst, has also added his voice to the selection of the running mate of the NDC, saying she is a woman of integrity and a perfect person as that matter. He also disagreed with those who said he's 70 years plus. He also said that's not the case, but rather she able to do something better, and he also compared him to the USA president who was 81 years plus. He also acknowledged the people of Ghana about the dumsor in Ghana, saying it's actively alive and there is no doubt about it. Without much ado, I would like you to join me listening to what he said into detail. Before you go, I would like you to remember you again or remind you again to subscribe to our channel for us. Thank you.
Thank you for staying on the Sweetie and Benjamin show. We call it the AM show. And of course, it's time now for us to dig into this stack of newspapers. We'll get through them. But right before we do so, right before I introduce my guest, let me just let you know that Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic is offering you something special. Now, your health is your wealth. And if you're a man, without your prostate, you could function. You would, in fact, function. But you know that it's like your appendix being taken off. You can still live, but there's a reason it is there. It is like your thyroid gland being taken off. It can be taken off, but you'll be on medication for probably the rest of your life. That's what the organs and the other parts of our body, every little thing, no matter how small, has a function. Now, in terms of the prostate, it's like the size of a walnut. So small, but so useful. You don't want it to be affected. And that's why if you're a man, especially 40 and above, you ought to pay attention to what is happening with your prostate by getting screening. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic is offering you that for free. If you're a woman, you've never checked out your fertility. Maybe you feel you've had 1, 2, 3 children, and so that's it. If you want to stop there, that's fine, but you never know what the future holds. Do you know your fertility status? Do you know if there are any developments around your womb or other areas that you ought to take stock of? Are you developing fibroids and you don't even know it? This screening will help you. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic offering that as well for free, gratis. Now, why not take advantage? Head to any of their branches here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi Kronoma here behind the Angel Educational Complex, the Stakradi Anaji State Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiama and Zema. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review, we're joined by financial analyst Dr. Wisdom Dogbe. He is my guest this morning. I see you. Good morning.
Good morning, Ben. Thank you for having me again.
Thanks for joining the conversation. I nearly did something this morning, but it's good. It's good we're finally connecting. There's a whole lot to talk about: the All African Games, politics, the Komfanoche Teaching Hospital that is in a sad state, taking in huge numbers, but in a deplorable state in many ways. The infrastructure, the funding required to bring in or be able to accommodate all those who throng that facility, among other developments. What would you like to reflect on briefly this morning before we make tracks?
Thank you, Ben. I want to talk briefly about President Mahama's choice of a vice president running mate. I have followed this a little bit, and I must admit that the majority leader, Honorable Anthony Markins, his statements about the NDC's running mate is quite unfortunate, to say the least. I am suspecting that women's rights and other equal rights advocacy groups, they might not necessarily share the same sentiments as the majority leader, insinuating that because the professor is 70 years old, she may not be fit for office. I am a father of girls also, so I tend to support seeing women in leadership to serve as role models to our girls. And I think that the decision of selecting a presidential running mate is a serious matter for any presidential candidate, especially in this current state of Ghana's economy, which desperately needs some form of improved leadership, right, to steer the nation towards prosperity. We are witnessing such leadership failure in the nation at several areas of government, and so the decision of who will be president and his running mate is of utmost importance, in my opinion, now more than ever. You know, presidents are hired to do a certain job, clearly defined. So I think that the onus lies on the presidential candidates to look for a running mate who brings that complementary skills and experience to the ticket. They need a running mate to complement, you know, what the president may be lacking. And I think that is why President Mahama chose Professor Jane Naana. From everything that I read about Professor Jane Ben, she's a woman of great integrity who understands education, governance, and economic affairs very well. And the role of a running mate, right, or vice president, it is a critical role, and it goes beyond just being the driver's mate. You know, the vice president has a front row seat in crafting and implementing policies for the betterment of the nation. So you need someone tried and tested. That is why I think that Professor Jane...
But wouldn't you rather say that Dr. Bawumia is the one who's been tried and tested? He's been there, he's done that. Now he wants to be president. We don't know who his running mate will be, but I don't know whether you're looking on the other side as well, whether they are justified in those comments. I don't think Afenyo Markin is justified, but someone else may look at it differently.
Yeah, I get your point, but if you look at women representation, right, and saying that because she's 70 years old, she may not be effective, I disagree with that. We have many world leaders. Even Trump is 77 years old.
Joe Biden is way past that.
Right, Joe Biden is 81 years. He's running for president. And so, Ben, I also suspect that President Mahama needed to ensure that some kind of geographical balance is brought to the ticket. So by selecting someone from a region that is different from his region, that should make the ticket appealing to voters who may otherwise feel underrepresented. And with this, I have no doubt that John and Jane can build a better coalition of support across the country. Ben, I also think that demographic appeal is taken into consideration here, you know, to choose someone who can help appeal to demographic groups such as women. And this makes the ticket stronger. And that is why I think Professor Jane is a perfect choice for the role. I am a huge advocate for women in leadership, right? Like I said earlier, I have 2 daughters. And I like my guests to see women in top leadership positions, especially folks that they can look up to and say that we can also dream big and achieve these big dreams. Then there is also the need to choose someone who is popular among party members, influential within the party, or has a strong base of support, all in a bid to unite the party and deepen that support base. And I heard that Professor Jane has long been an active member of the party, you know, playing various roles in the party since 1996. You know, when she began as the host on the show called Platform on Radio Gold. Of course, there is also the need for that personal chemistry, right, and compatibility, you know, to be present between both the president and the vice. And if you see both of them together, there is no doubt they can work together. But I think that what is of greater importance is the ability to govern together effectively, right? Someone with that track record of sound leadership. And I think that she fits that bill also very well. So good luck to them.
All right, thank you very much. On the bit about age, I don't believe in ageism. I believe more young people could be given opportunities as far as leadership is concerned in governing our country. I believe that. But there are a few examples that are not exactly positive. I believe the Minister for Poverty in Nigeria, something and poverty or something of the sort. She's in her 30s. She's given an opportunity, and recently there's been a scandal there. I've not followed the rest of that issue to know what has happened, but those are what take away sometimes when young people are offered leadership. You look at our country, some have done well, others have not lived up to expectation on both sides of the political divide. But when it comes to age, I mean, the president himself, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, on the 29th day of March, if memory serves, he will be 80. And that tells you that at the time he became president, he was around 72, 73 years old. So I guess that balance is needed. But let's get into the papers. Thanks for sharing those thoughts. Interesting thought, though. Yesterday, I had an interaction with a number of people. I believe Dr. John Osai Kwapong gave the John and Jane ticket 8.5 out of 10. Or was it 8 out of 10? Then there was Professor Kobi Mensah. I think Kobi Mensah is the one who gave 8.5. And another guest gave them 9 out of 10. What would your score be if you had to rate the John and Jane ticket? Just give me on a scale of 1 to 10. What would your score be?
I'll give them a 9. Definitely. The reason is this, right? You need a balance. If you look at it, we need women representation. Even if you look at Parliament today, from the MPP elections, a lot of female MPs lost their seats, right?
Right.
We need to increase that, and we need to make sure that we are pursuing opportunities like this to give women more opportunities, more leadership roles in the government.
So is this just to give women a voice? Is this like affirmative action in politics?
Not just that, because they are overly qualified and they are underrepresented, in my opinion.
Okay, that is exactly what I wanted you to stress, because sometimes when we talk about these things, we act as though it were just affirmative action. If the person is qualified, male or female, if the person can do the work, why not? So that's the thinking there. Anyway, let's get into the papers. I'll start with the Daily Graphic newspaper. Ofankwan Sawam Road Project, 100 lawsuits impede work. That's according to the chief engineer. And then Attorney General advocates renewable energy use in schools. Implementation of Planting for Food and Jobs 2.0. Farmers registration begins today. On the back page, satellites to make amends against the Gambia. Our male teams, I don't know. And Bofuaka fight back to hold hearts to a 1-1 draw. But let me start with sports, especially as the All-African Games is ongoing, and it appears I may have to talk about that again in my blunt thoughts. I shared some brief thoughts, shed some light on it last week, but with some of what I have seen, I am deeply, gravely worried, and we're cooking up something, so stay with us. But Ghana's Black Satellites have vowed to make amends and save their African Games campaign as they come up against the Gambia today at the Accra Sports Stadium in their second group game of the ongoing Games, Accra 2023. Last Friday, the Satellites made a stuttering start to their campaign to win gold at home, not only with a drawn game against Congo, but an unimpressive performance, which raised concerns that they might not realize their dreams. To make it to the next round of the competition, the Satellites need to win in today's game as well as score more to ensure that they leave nothing to chance and avoid any permutations should the other group contenders end up with similar results. We are experts at permutations, like we saw at the AFCON. Oh, and if this team draws, and if we win by this margin, massa. Anyway, Princesses aim for goals. Now in Cape Coast, Coach Yusuf Basigi may not have the same headache as his Satellites counterpart as he seeks to lead the Princesses to an early qualification in their second game against Tanzania this evening, having won 1-0 in their opening game against Ethiopia last Saturday. The same match where it was ongoing and the lights went off. Yeah, that same match. But I keep saying, for the life of me, I don't get it. The women are doing so well in sports. Our first gold medal, I think our only gold medal, was that weightlifting medal by a woman. Women are doing so well. Other sports are doing so well. We throw all our money after football. And even in football, it is the men. The women get the chicken change. It's like being penny wise and pound foolish. That's how we are. I don't know whether you have any thoughts on that before I get into road projects and all that.
You know, Ben, quick thoughts on that. Ghanaians are people of resilience, right? That's why regardless of what people are going through in the country, you see them on the streets, at churches, at the stadium, and other places, dancing, right, singing, and simply happy. You know, to me, it seems that Ghanaians are happier than their American and other foreign counterparts, who comparatively have higher standards of living for the most part. And in a time like this, when things are happening,
are we? Because recently I've been looking at the latest happiness index. There's an index, and it doesn't appear Ghanaians are that happy.
I can tell you when I visit Ghana and being over here, I think Ghanaians are usually happy with even the very little that they have. You know, I think that people are naturally worried about the state of the economy, right? Some of the things that bring us together today is the strength of our collective force, whether it's Singathon, Hookathon, or this African Games. And so I think that these games are very necessary in bringing the nation together as we watch and cheer for our athletes, even though some of them are not doing that well. But what I wanted to say on this is, I was shocked to hear that we have spent north of $240 million to put these games together. And I'm not sure what
I know of almost 200 million. I know of almost 200 million. There could be others that I'm not aware of.
I had about 242 million actually yesterday on your channel.
Right. That's why I'm saying there may be other things that I'm not factoring in, but some of the things, the Games Village, the University of Ghana Stadium, the other complex and all of that. But I'm sure there's something else I have not added. So go ahead.
Right. But Ben, I heard that similar tournaments are organized in advanced countries, usually at a fraction of what we are spending at these African Games. We can only hope that the funds were not misappropriated, right? And there will be full transparency and accountability. And yes, I also heard that there were delays in delivering much needed equipment to the athletes. And the national champion of cycling had to withdraw from the competition because of a faulty bike. To be honest, I find these things extremely challenging to comprehend, right? How do you spend such amount of money in organizing this sporting event, and you can now buy the right professional bike with the best quality for our athletes?
If you're surprised by that, you should know that some people got their equipment to train a day or so before the tournament started. You should know that someone who dons size, is it 47 or 46, was given size 36 to put on his feet. You should know that as well.
You can't make that stuff up, right? And it's difficult to comprehend. And I think that we as a nation, we can do better, right? But I'll say this. We wish the athletes the best in the competition. The nation is rooting for them to bring more medals. And we'll leave the accountability to our leaders to account for the nation, how some of these monies are spent.
Well, in other stories, very quickly, 100 lawsuits impede work. Chief engineer now. More than 100 lawsuits ranging from human rights cases to ownership of portions of the road earmarked for the reconstruction of the 18.1 kilometer of Ankoansawam dual carriageway project are hindering the completion of work on schedule. With some of the cases dating back to 2022, the chief resident engineer, Kwabena Bempong, told the Daily Graphic that his team would not be able to meet the government's August deadline. Quoting him, he says, "These cases have dragged on for quite some time, and these are impeding the progress of the work, because there are some areas where we have to relocate the utility lines like electricity, telephone, infrastructure, and water. And until they are moved, we are unable to complete the construction of our main roads and the service roads." He gave the briefing to the Minister-designate, Mr. Bimpong. Briefing the Minister-designate, Mr. Bimpong explained that the team had been able to complete a railway bridge, including an underpass at the Pukwase interchange project, adding that the retaining wall was almost completed, which means that a lot of those in that enclave who were expecting that this would be done so that the dust and all of that, they can be spared the agony of that. I mean, if you live in this catchment area and if you're driving or walking there every day, it's hazardous because of the dust alone. Let's forget everything else. The dust alone, inhalation on a daily basis. But this is what is happening, and now we get into why it is happening. Let me quickly turn to, would you like to react to that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say this, right? 100 lawsuits is a lot. And I don't know when the judicial system can fully exhaust all of these cases before the project can be completed. You know, there should be a strategy to deal with all of the grievances raised in the lawsuit to help mitigate the delay and move the projects forward, right? And that brings me to the question of, how was the project planning done in the first place if all of these grievances were not initially caught and addressed? I would think that there was a comprehensive project planning, right? A process around this planning where all environmental and other impact assessments were completed. what some of this could have been addressed to avoid the legal issues that the contractor was talking about. I would have expected an open and also transparent communication with stakeholders, the human rights groups and the landowners mentioned in this article, who will be impacted by this project. This would have been addressed, right? If you caught this earlier at the initial stages of the project, you could have addressed this and avoid all of this situation with the lawsuits. So early engagements and consultation with the stakeholders could have prevented some of these legal challenges that are delaying the project. If the contractor was to finish the work on schedule, though, I would recommend leveraging alternative dispute resolution because nothing moves fast in the judicial system in Ghana. So bringing the chiefs and other stakeholders together, have some kind of mediation of or arbitration, and resolve these challenges in a more timely manner. Otherwise, you are bound to see very lengthy court battles that will further delay the project. However, Ben, the government can also help in this case. They could help facilitate expedited court procedures for these infrastructure-related cases to quickly resolve the issues and pave the way for the work to be completed.
And that is if they will do that. Let's look at some other stories. African youth advised to develop talents, and the International Organization for Migration has advised young Africans to develop their talents to benefit from opportunities that make themselves available on the continent. The quote is, "Do not wait for your government to create opportunities for you. Harness your talents and skills as young Africans to make a living for yourself." She emphasized the senior policy and liaison officer at IOM's Special Liaison Office to the AU and United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, Kachi Madubuko. And that is it. Yes, to some extent, you have to fend for yourself. You have to get those skills. Talents you come with. You have to build upon them. Skills you acquire as you pick this or that from this or that learning or industry, and then you fuse them together and you make something of yourself. So I've always said a first-class degree, even a 4.0 or a 3.9, is not enough. It will get your foot in, but beyond that, you better have something else to show that will set you apart. Attorney General advocates renewable energy in schools. The Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Godfrey Abuadame, has advocated the promotion of renewable energy use in schools. He said that would not only ensure a regular supply of electricity to improve on the learning situations where power supply to some institutions was cut for non-payment of electricity bills. And recently we've seen schools suffer time and again with some of these incidents of not being able to foot their electricity bills. Then wrapping on page 13, before we take a stab at some international stories. So farmers registration begins today. It has to do with Planting for Food and Jobs 2.0. And the Ministry of Food and Agriculture has begun registering interested farmers under phase 2 of the Planting for Food and Jobs program, codenamed PFJ 2.0, in all 261 districts across the country. The registration exercise requires interested farmers and institutions or companies to visit their district's agricultural directorate, where extension officers will assist them by capturing their data with tablets supplied by the government. And on the front, gunmen kidnapped nearly 300 students in northwest Nigeria. This is becoming a big problem. Rashidat Hamza is in despair. All but one of her 6 children are among the nearly 300 students abducted from their school in Nigeria's northwest, riddled with Islamic extremists and armed gangs. I find it a bit difficult sometimes when these stories are also couched, because it makes it appear all Muslims, anyone, once you mention Islam, it is radical, it is this. It's not the case, but unfortunately these elements make the religion look bad, which is actually not the case. Trump won't fund Ukraine war, and then Macron pushes on with assisted dying bill. I'm sure you've heard of euthanasia, and that is being considered in France. It appears there are a lot of things they are doing now. They've legalized abortion, and now they just might be legalizing euthanasia or aided dying. That's the situation there. Any quick thoughts before we move on to the next papers and wrap?
Yeah, Ben, let me touch briefly on the renewable energy push in the schools. I think it's a great idea, what our Attorney General is advocating for. I will go a step further to advocate for the use of green energy sources more widely, even in factories and everywhere else across the economy, right? And not just in schools. There are real environmental benefits to this. If you think about it, renewable energy sources such as wind and solar, these produce electricity without emitting greenhouse gases or other harmful pollutants. That's how you reduce the nation's carbon footprint to contribute to cleaner and healthier environment, not through emissions taxes like the way Ghana had planned to do initially. You know, initial investment in renewable energy systems can be cost prohibitive, right? But the long-term cost savings can also be significant then. So there is the long-term cost savings benefit because you start using renewable energy to generate electricity at lower cost compared to traditional fossil fuel sources. Your long-term energy bills will be reduced over time. And we're talking about schools here, right? So I think it can be excellent educational opportunity for the students because they get to learn more benefits of renewable energy conservation, and also if you think about sustainability practices. That's hands-on learning that they actually get with some of these things. And there's no better time to promote the use of renewable energy than now. Dumsor is alive and kicking. And one way to achieve energy independence is to say that we've had enough of the over-dependence on the grid because renewable energy is an alternative when it comes to mitigating the risk associated with constant power outages, dumsor as we like to call it. You know, the challenges that I see here is that, as I mentioned earlier, the initial investment or the upfront cost of installing large-scale renewable systems can be high. Can the schools afford it? Or government do they have the budget for it? Also, if you think about it, there's the need to consider maintenance, right, and expertise. Then these renewable energy systems often require regular maintenance and monitoring to ensure the optimal performance of these systems. The schools will need to allocate funds for maintenance and train the students or someone with expertise in this kind of technologies to properly maintain this. And finally, the technology continues to evolve, right? So to make it more efficient and get the best capacity out of this, I think that there has to be more investment, not just implemented one time.
All right. Let's quickly get into the other stories. And the Daily Guide, old in quotes, Naana sparks outrage in Parliament. You've alluded to that issue, Afinyo Marking coming under fire in Parliament. I was disappointed in the majority leader, but it is what it is. I guess he's also carving his own path. You would look back at Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu and wonder whether he would have gone that way. And even if he would, the sort of, maybe I should call it tact he would have used. I found it unnecessary. It was kind of like the Sairam Al-Hassan issue, now being vetted to be a minister. She's been vetted already. Lydia Sairam Al-Hassan, the member of parliament for Ayawaso West Wuogon, when some NDC MPs hoisted, I don't even want to repeat it, but B widow, something, a B word and widow in parliament. It's kind of akin to that. You use it but anyway, I guess politicians will be politicians. My husband died of terminal disease, John Kuma's wife says so. I hear there is some autopsy report. I'm not so sure, but I heard there was no toxicology or autopsy report, and I was getting concerned. I don't know what everybody knows that someone may not know, and this whole bit about poisoning that has been bandied here and there, but we'll see how it goes. 200 stalls razed down in fire. And then on page 6, Election 2024, Bawumia leads Mahama in swing constituencies. The story says, flag bearer of the ruling NPP, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, is said to be leading former President John Mahama in gaining substantial support in constituencies critical to electoral victory ahead of the December 7 elections. A report based on a survey conducted by Outcomes International among 977 respondents in 10 key swing constituencies across Greater Accra Central and Bono regions from February 10 to 25, 2024 indicates that Bawumia is ahead of the flag bearer of the NDC. Now, it purports that Dr. Bawumia leads with 43.5%, while John Mahama has 42.1%. 6.9% of respondents expressed their intention to vote for other candidates, while 7.4% remained undecided during the polling period. I would say in response to this, because I've seen other reports that also substantiate the other side, I would say the proof of the pudding is in the eating. To determine who wins, we'll go to elections, and that's it. Nearly 200 stalls and properties valued at millions of cedis were razed down in a fire outbreak at the Kumasi Racecourse Market in the Ashanti region. I've become tired of talking about these stories because they happen every now and then. Give yourself 3 months, there will be a fire, 3 or 4 months. So, the new finder, minority opts for private members' bill to remove nuisance taxes. It also talks about the registration of farmers. Then job scarcity on the rise. That's where I'm going to end. Economy Times, job scarcity on the rise. Job availability in the country has continued to decline, according to the Bank of Ghana. The number of jobs advertised in selected media, which partially gauges labor demand in the economy, decreased in December 2023 relative to jobs recorded a year ago. For the rest of the story, grab a copy of Economy Times. But at the same time, we say we are creating these millions of jobs. Doc, you have a minute. Let's go.
Ben, on the issue with the fire outbreak in Kumasi, you know, to lose your business and livelihood in these unfortunate incidences, especially in this current economic downturn in the country, it is very saddening. And I'm sorry to hear about these traders having lost significantly, right?
Right.
I don't know if it's just me, but I keep hearing about these disasters happening too often in the country. And I've been wondering, what can we do as a nation to address these disasters? Thank God there was no loss of life, but we need to take steps, you know, to reduce the instances of fire outbreak like this one.
Right.
Look, someone could have died in this fire. So we don't need to wait until lives are lost before we act.
Right.
We need to do more, you know, to strictly ensure that building codes and regulations are enforced.
Right.
And as we build new facilities, we want to make sure that some of these facilities have state-of-the-art equipment. And to prevent some of these fires from happening, even in the first place, human life is very important. I think that the previous ones, some people died in it, and we need to learn the lesson and implement some of these things very quickly.
Right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on all of these matters. We wish you the very best in your day and in your activities today. I know it's probably very early in the morning where you are at dawn, so you're going to catch some rest before you head off to work. All the best.
All right. Thank you.
And that is financial analyst Dr. Wisdom Kofi Dugbe. He joined us this morning for breakfast. If you love my album,
thank you for watching PENDREAM TV. Really appreciate your time. Please, if today being the first time here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel for us. Hit the notification bell, turn it to all so that you'll be the first to receive any updates that will be loaded onto the channel. Thank you. Stay blessed. Bye bye.
Dedi kama mamena PENDREAM TV ase. Na so far so good. Say open online portal e wo Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.